Welcome to the Business Women Australia podcast show, the podcast that brings together industry leaders to discuss the latest trends, insights and strategies. So sit back and relax, let's get inspired by the amazing women who are shaping the future of professional women in Australia. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Welcome, I'm Lyn Hawkins and you're listening to the Business Women Australia podcast show. I'm the National Director of Business Women Australia and streaming live from the beautiful lands of the Noongar people on the west coast of Australia. I've been watching dolphins and sea life out of my window, and I feel so grateful to the traditional owners of this country for caring for this land and for welcoming us with so much patience, resilience and care. I have the deepest respect for elders, past, present, and those emerging. And I hope all Australians take the time to learn about our ancient history. Look, today I'm delighted to welcome the fabulous Emma Mekisic, who is going to courageously share her journey with bowel cancer with us today. It's no longer an old person's disease, and it's really great that Emma's been agreed to share her story. She calls this the Unwanted Passenger, and it's changed her perspective on life, on health and leadership. So sit back, be inspired. This will be an uplifting reminder that even when life delivers an unwanted passenger like this, we have the power to steer the journey. Also, Emma's lived experience will certainly raise the importance of bowel cancer awareness, and it's not something that's readily spoken about, especially for younger women. Welcome, Emma.
Hi, Lyn. Thank you.
Look, before we dive into our conversation, I just want to say that, you bring to our community 20 years of experience in financial services industry. You've had an amazing executive and professional career. You're highly accomplished in senior sales leader and management specialist roles, and you're very well known for your very strategic mindset, your passion for innovation and unwavering commitment to operational excellence. In fact, I've known you quite a few years now, and I've seen you successfully lead teams across both small business environments and large corporate structures, and driving growth, improving client and stakeholder relationships, and improving positive organisational change. I've always been an admirer of your tenacity, your passion, and your ability to really foster a culture of accountability and continuous improvement and high performance, but in a way that really nurtures your team. So, you were really going along, leading transformations and running your business, doing all these things that you do as a classic career executive who is quite an extraordinary woman. Your work, your career, your kids, your life outside work, these were your focus areas. And then all of a sudden, bang, this unwanted passenger arrived. So tell us about the moment you realised something wasn't right and how the diagnosis unfolded for you, and what that phrase has come to mean for you, this unwanted passenger.
Well, to be honest, it wasn't one particular symptom that came through. Being, as referenced, as you mentioned, being a high corporate executive woman, busy lifestyles, inside of work, outside of work, body changes as you get older, things just one day appear and the next day are gone, and you put it down to I'm stressed, I'm overworked, I ate something that didn't sit right, or I must have pulled something. You don't necessarily, because the symptoms that I were having weren't regular, you could easily put it down to just the common everyday stresses of life and being a woman and going through, what you think is perimenopause, all those sorts of things. It really wasn't until I was having a conversation with a very good friend of mine who's a doctor, who actually pushed me to go and see a GP and get a referral, did that actually kind of sit with me and go, all right, it might be more than this. It might be more than just the stress. So a week later, I was having the colonoscopy, and at that point, I still was like, this is going to be fine. I'm sitting there going, right, I've got this to do when I get home. I've got work tomorrow, or my life is not going to change. This is just a tick and a flick. Well, it wasn't a tick and a flick, because when I woke up after the procedure, they pulled me aside. There was a nurse there, and there was also a doctor. And as I was still coming out of the anaesthetic, they just turned around and said, you have stage 3 bowel cancer. So at that point, I wasn't even really in my right mind to process that information that was coming through. Bless his soul, my partner got the phone call. He was driving to pick me up, and they told him over the phone. And I was more worried about how he was reacting, driving, hearing that news, rather than me sitting in this little white room with 2 people I don't know, just being told that this is where I am. So it wasn't really until the next day, when I had a 5-minute, cup of water, because I don't drink coffee, but it felt like a heavy blanket was pushing on my shoulders. And at that point, I decided that I was going to do everything I can to not let this define who I am.
I mean, that's just to hear the words, stage 3 bowel cancer must be such a shocking diagnosis. How did you find your sense of control amongst that? I mean, that would, I think for me, that would just throw me into such a spin.
I think I wouldn't say it was denial, because I always accepted that this was something that's come into my life for whatever reason, however my body created this, needed this to happen, whatever people talk about when they talk about these life-changing events that happen. It was more, well, all right, I have this. I know I need to do what I can to get past it. So it's going to have to work in with what I need to do in a day. I'm not going to let this drive my day. So going through the conversations with all the doctors, all the surgeons, everything that you need to go through about what your treatment plan looks like, I'm having these conversations and thinking, well, all right, I need to have radiation, chemo, potentially surgery, right? Well, I want chemo at these times so I can still go to work. Work was so important that I maintained that normality. And that was just really something that I really wanted to be on top of. Yes, it's a control thing, because I've lost so much control, because something is in my body that I never wanted, I never asked for, potentially could end my life, could leave my daughters without a mother. I could miss weddings, grandchildren, all these sorts of things. I'm not ready for this. So I'm not going to let it take over my life. I'm going to push this and try and maintain as much normality as possible.
And you've got twin daughters. How old were they when you had the diagnosis?
They were 20 or 19.
Yes.
19.
I think they were teens when you had that diagnosis. I can remember it when it came through. And it's such a shocking thing for them too, so how you've sort of taking control of how you're going to react to this would have given them some sort of comfort too, perhaps.
Well, I guess I also wanted, they have seen so much of the trials and I guess the tribulations of my life in lots of different areas. And yes, cancer is scary, and it is life-defining and all those things that people talk about. It's something that, unless you've been through it, it's really hard to explain to people what it feels like, how it feels to know that I can talk to you and still have, and like I was going to work on the phone, working every day, but I'm sitting there with a chemo pump attached to my body and nobody knows. So I wanted my girls to know that it doesn't matter what happens in your life, your mindset, your tenacity, your push, your drive is what sometimes is the one thing that gets you from one day to the next. And don't give up.
It's extraordinary. I can't imagine many people continuing to work during those circumstances. But you also made this conscious decision to do a lot of research, to question and challenge some of the medical advice as well, while still adopting, the Western, amazing evidence-based advice. But you did more than that, didn't you? Tell us about your own treatment plan.
Look, I have an amazing partner who is very supportive. And when I was talking to Neil about how I don't want to find healthy alternatives to cure cancer, but what I want to do is I want to find those healthy alternatives that will work alongside and help my body recover reacting to the radiation and the chemotherapy. So when we started looking down that path where it wasn't about curing the cancer, it was about supporting my body to, process the radiation, process the chemotherapy that was going through my body constantly for 24/7 for the first 7 weeks. It was, how can I deal with fatigue? How can I help with my muscle memory? How can I support my hair so it all doesn't fall out? Just, my skin so it doesn't dry out, those sorts of things. And just by knowing a lot about how one connects with another just made things so much easier. And it also really, I found, helped my body deal with the next round of chemo, the next round of radiation towards the end, because my body was in a place where it was actually now holding on to these natural vitamins, minerals, and working with my body while I was going through that treatment.
It's incredible too, even from, I think, a neuroscience point of view, what we've been learning about the brain in the last 10, 15 years around that sense of agency and brain training. It's also training your brain to be sending all the things we still don't understand about healing. It's such a brilliant, you're such a brilliant example of not just sitting back and allowing things to happen to you and not having any control. And I just, when we just were discussing and planning this podcast, that was what I was getting really excited about, is that this is relevant in terms of raising awareness around bowel cancer, but also in terms of life. Generally when life dishes up this stuff, the sense of being able to improve your situation the best you can is a perfect example of what you've done, Emma. Now, many people turn to heavy medication, obviously, during chemo, but you chose this more natural path, these vitamin supplements and looking at your skin and your hair and your general well-being, your health, your strength, keeping yourself as strong as possible. How did you manage the side effects, in terms of your mind? There would have been still a lot of stuff. Did you feel sick? Were you, tell us about the side effects and how you were able to manage that.
Well, I think, look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It was horrible. It was some of the worst moments of my life. My treatment cycle was in 2 stages. So the first part was I had radiation every day for 7 weeks, not on the weekends, just Monday to Friday. But I also had to wear a chemo pump for 24/7 for those 7 weeks, and it would be replaced every Monday. I had to shower with it, sleep with it, all that. Those 7 weeks, I really only struggled with fatigue, which I could easily manage. And I had been managing fatigue for some time. So those first 7 weeks, I was in this place of, I'm doing really well. I'm still working every day. Some days I'm doing, 14, 16 hours a day still. So I was feeling that I was getting over this. I was getting through this. I was building this great wall of, I've got this, it's all looking good. I then went and had a procedure done where they did say that the cancer had absolutely reduced in size and that the treatment was working. But now they wanted me to do a second round of just basic chemo. Hearing those words and having to go to hospital once a fortnight to sit there for 5 hours was daunting, was how am I going to do this? How am I going to get through this? So, and as I had actually messaged you at that time, I was going to hospital on those Wednesdays with my laptop from work, an extra screen. I was setting up the hospital bed as like a little room where I could work in to just distract myself for those 5 hours. After that 4 to 5.5 hour session, I would go home again with the chemo pump for another 3 days. I'd go back to the hospital on the Friday and get it taken out. Now, that weekend, that Saturday, was a really difficult day. Your entire body just feels sick. It doesn't feel like you've got the flu. It doesn't feel like you've got gastro. It's such a unique feeling from head to toe. By the time Sunday came around, I was twice as bad. Some Sundays I couldn't even get out of bed. I would literally be on my hands and knees walking to the bathroom, like crawling to the bathroom. Having a shower was one of the hardest things because when the water would hit my skin, it would feel like needles because the chemotherapy affects all your nerve endings and makes you sensitive to cold and hot. So even that was difficult. I remember going to the supermarket and walking down the aisle where all the milk and yogurts and all that were, and I couldn't because the cold was too much for me to bear with my fingers. So even doing grocery shopping got to a point where it was just too difficult to do. The night sweats going through I call it chemo recovery for those 5 days after that Friday. It was the hot sweats that I couldn't drink water. It would hurt to drink water. Sleeping was just, you couldn't sleep. You would doze, but there was no sleeping. So it just progressively got worse until the end. The last cycle, you sit there some days while you're by yourself, and the thoughts that go through your mind are not thoughts that normal people think of, because you get to a point where your body is so tired of fighting, and you just have to push through and look at a photo, listen to some music, listen to my girls giggling in the other room. Like it was just, I just had to find a way to push through the pain and the feeling of just unwell.
Yeah, gee, I'd get these messages from you when you were feeling better, after you've come out of all that, and you'd be going, I've got good news. I just love those sort of Facebook Messenger messages from you, and I'd be like punching the air, going, oh God, go girl, we're all rooting for you in the background. But when you're not going through any of that, you really have no idea what your girlfriends are going through. And that idea of drawing on your sensory memories, on music, and you talked to me about, having lucid dreams and drawing on these. Tell us a little bit about that. If you're happy to share that on the show.
Absolutely. Look, I got to a point where I was just trying to find everything and anything to help open my mind, to help my body repair itself. So there's a lot of high frequency music on YouTube, which is about healing and, all those sorts of things. And I would find that as I was going through this chemo recovery on those 4 or 5 days, that when I was sleeping and playing this music next to me, so I wouldn't put earphones or anything, I just let it play through my phone, that I would be having these out of body experiences, looking at myself laying on the bed, like kind of talking to myself to just go, you've got this, you're doing the right thing, like you're going to get through this, you're going to live through this, you're going to help people. Like it was just some days quite off-putting when I would wake up and go, I don't know if this actually just really happened, but I feel really invigorated. I feel I can get through today. Like it was really comforting to a point as well.
Oh, that's just amazing. That every part of your whole sense of self and your whole, even your spiritual being, this is working towards your survival. I'm so inspired by that. So even with dealing with all that, you've continued to thrive professionally. This is what's blown me away. Is you'd be texting me about how, okay, you've just had some good news, but look, can I just sort of shoot the breeze with you about some work things or what have you? And I'm like, going, are you from another planet? Honestly, Emma. Look, tell me about how, how do you balance that kind of scenario, your outside your your health and your well-being with work? I mean, look, it worries me when you say you do 14, 16 hours a day. That, Emma, that's not sustainable. You got to, maybe this has come to tell you to slow that down a little bit, just between you and me. But look, tell us about how you're balancing, how you're finding it.
Well, not only did I go through all of this in the last 12 months, unfortunately, due to business restructures, I was also made redundant right in the middle of it as well. So I not only had the whole chemo, radiation and everything going through, I was dealing with being made redundant from a job, and then, all the things pop up in your mind, don't they? Like, who's going to employ a cancer patient? Who's going to employ someone that needs to have time off to do X, Y, Z? Now, at a time, I didn't need to stay working going through this treatment cycle. That was my choice because I wanted that normality. I'm very blessed to have some people in my corner that helped me connect with some amazing people where I currently work now. And they're very super supportive. They're an amazing company to work for. Still very family kind of feel orientated, which is great, and supportive of me doing these things and a few other things. But back to your question before is, I have always lived my life through my work. Every time I've had something difficult happen in my life, my work has been my savior. It's been my way to disconnect from the dramas of what's going on outside. And I think that's what happened here again this time, is I chose to rebuild systems. I chose to focus on creating manuals, and just so my headspace was not constantly focusing on, I have this unwanted passenger, I have cancer, I potentially could not be here in 2 years' time. I've got a test, I've got another test coming up, another scan coming up, another blood test coming up, and then getting yourself all worked up about it. So I've chose to continue on that work path and mentoring other women and doing a whole bunch of other stuff to stay relevant, stay focused, stay positive about where I was at. And it worked for me. And my girls saw it, which I'm very blessed that they were supportive as well.
Yeah, it's raising a whole lot of other questions that I'd love to endeavour. And one of them is, this question around our cultures in helping people, manage their lives when they are going through these kinds of challenges, health challenges or outside, when life and chaos is going on out here. It might be even financial issues or family issues or separation, cancer, whatever. What, as employers and in safe workplaces, what should we be doing to support our people? And that is a whole nother topic. But I do want to get back to this experience, how this journey may have affected or impacted on your leadership style. You were already an incredible leader, but having gone through this, how has it impacted on the way that you lead and manage other people?
I think the one big thing that has come to me is I am very much focused on ensuring that people have a happy and healthy work-life balance. I want to create and work in an environment where people feel comfortable to come and say, hey, I need to take a couple of hours off, or, I've got this event coming up. I know it's a really awkward time for the business, but it would mean a lot to me if I could take it off. Like, I want to have and work in an open, transparent environment where people are comfortable to have those conversations, because I absolutely do believe that stress is a big part of the body's way of dealing with sicknesses and that sort of stuff. And I do think that that is one part of how I ended up in the position I was. And I don't want to see anybody go through what I went through if it can be prevented.
And these are the conversations we need to be having in the workplace, isn't it? Really, I mean, so many people wouldn't even tell their workplace if they're going through things.
It's very important, I think, to have someone in the workplace that you can connect with on that level. That it doesn't have to be your boss, it doesn't have to even be your next in charge, but it needs to be someone where you can go to and say, this is important to me, I need to do this. And I think it's also important that a business understands the people that they employ. Because everybody has different drivers, everybody has different focuses, everybody has a different family home life. So understanding what that looks like to that person and how you can incorporate what's important to them plus their role, not only will you get more out of them, but you'll retain them longer. And you'll have a more happy, healthy, collaborative workplace, because everybody will see how the business supports everyone, and then everybody will start to support each other. It's just this massive conversation that could go on for hours, Lyn, but that is something that's important to me, is understanding the people that I work with, what their drivers are, and ensuring that they have that work-life balance and they take that time for themselves.
Yeah, look, this is a topic that's coming up over and over again around workplaces and psychologically safe workplaces as well. So, I know that a lot of our leaders that are in the people and culture space are really keen to, look at how they can provide workplaces that are supportive like this. So these conversations are so timely and so relevant. And what sort of message would you want to send to other women, especially younger ones, about bowel cancer awareness and the importance of early detection?
My first thing is, if it doesn't feel right, get it checked. It doesn't matter if you go to the doctors once a week. If it doesn't feel right and you know your body, go get it checked. Don't do the Dr. Google. Go see a professional. Go ask. Find out if you've got family history of bowel cancer, because I did have, and that actually was one of the key reasons why they rushed me in to get the colonoscopy at the very outset, opposed to getting a blood test first. So it's really important to understand your body and know that if something doesn't feel right, go get it checked.
Yeah, don't put it off. Don't put it down to perimenopause or the life stresses. Just get it checked.
Yep.
Yeah, that's and it's one of those classic scenarios when you're busy with work and life, you quite often put your own needs down I'll get onto that. And this is a really timely warning. So you've become a real voice of encouragement across all the platforms on LinkedIn and within our Business Women Australia community. And sharing this story publicly, has that been helpful to you in healing and in connecting with others?
It's definitely made me feel not so alone in going through it. When I made the decision initially to do it, because as you would know, I am a very private person, so it took a lot for me to be quite open and transparent about this journey. But when I very first did, I was inundated with messages via LinkedIn of people thanking me for coming out with this message, me being young, going through it, what it looked like, what it sounded like, all that sort of thing. I think at last count, I've had something like 280 messages from people asking me questions, thanking me, telling me about their journey, a journey from a family member. I've even had women come back to me and say, unfortunately, that because of my message, they went and got tested, but they were detected earlier than I was. So just knowing that my message has reached a handful of people that went and got tested and were able to be detected a lot earlier than me, I feel that is an absolute blessing. Knowing that my voice is helping people look at things a little bit differently as well, when it comes to what they do around their health, that in itself is inspiring me, because people are coming back and going, oh, well, have you tried this? And what about this? And it's really opened up a lot of different conversations.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's very brave and courageous, and it's going to have a ripple effect through the community for this to be a conversation that everyone should be having and sharing with each other and supporting each other through the process as well. Looking ahead, I'm very interested in how you would define wellness now compared to, before all this happened, and what sort of daily practices keep you grounded and so grateful and optimistic.
I think when I look at that 8 months of my life and everything I went through, sometimes I reflect and it just feels like it never happened. I sometimes sit back and reflect of what I went through and went, I don't know where that strength came from. But now it's a slow journey back. I do still struggle with neuropathy in my feet, especially. I can't walk very long distances at the moment. I do still struggle eating certain things. My taste buds are slowly now starting to come back. So there's still a long journey ahead. But I do and have little markers for myself. So I'm walking in the pines because I love being out in the outdoors. So I'm trying to do that twice a week. In the next couple of weeks, I'd like to make that 3 times a week. And it's only short, but it's better than nothing. And it's helping me in that space. I'm slowly introducing different foods back in every week that I used to be able to eat that I couldn't, and now I want to eat again. So it's not something that I can just turn back on. It's definitely a process. And it's also helping me because I'm going walking in the pines with my daughters. They're coming with me, and we're having chats and we're communicating a bit longer and those sorts of things. And it's just finding new ways to make food is really fun and exciting, and Googling different recipes. And so it's turning all these, what some would feel as little humps or things that pull you back because I can't go and have an hour walk like I used to. It's about turning it into something positive. And by me doing that, it just filters through my entire life. I now really try and find a positive with everything. If I have one little negative thought that comes into my brain, I snap my fingers and I say, think of something positive. So it's just, they're little daily practices, but they're things that work for me and that I will continue to do.
I love that. And it's Bowel Cancer Awareness Month coming up. When's that?
Or you know what, you've got me there. I think it's actually June. I can't quite.
Might have to look. We'll pop it in the show notes. But keep an eye out. I know that you're available to speak on this subject. You're very open to share your personal journey, so that you're raising awareness for the importance of early detection, particularly for young women. And for us to realise that bowel cancer is not an old person's issue. It's actually a growing statistic, unfortunately, amongst younger and younger people. Emma, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Lyn. Thank you for having me. I'm glad we finally got there.
I'm amazed at how quickly you were open to doing it. Honestly, it is a personal journey, and I know, as you say, you're a very private person, so we really feel very grateful that you've come on the show and shared that. For our listeners out here, thank you for tuning in. And if you haven't been able to catch it, you will find us on YouTube. We're also going to be uploading this to Spotify and iTunes on the Business Women Australia podcast show. and it'll be sitting on LinkedIn. You'll be able to connect through there. And I believe it's sitting on Facebook, but it's a great place to follow us on YouTube, and you won't miss any of our episodes. And if you've been thinking about getting more involved, getting out there and engaged with our community, we have chapters all around the nation. We have in-person events, we have online events. We would love for you to join a community of very supportive, generous, open-hearted women, leaders, conscious leaders around the nation in every state and across every sector. Just jump onto our website, www.businesswomenaustralia.com.au. You'll find all our articles, our member directory, and ways to join online. So thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you for our next episode. Feel free to reach out to me. You'll find me on LinkedIn, or through our contact page if you've got ideas or any questions. Thanks, Emma.
Thanks.
You have been listening to the Business Women Australia podcast show. We hope you've enjoyed today's episode and gained some valuable insights to empower you on your journey. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe to stay updated in our latest episodes. And if you're not already a member of Business Women Australia, what are you waiting for? Head to our website today and join so that you can connect with a thriving community of inspiring women across Australia. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.